The Minnesota Vikings added some depth to their quarterback room. Former Giants first-round pick Daniel Jones signing with the Vikings on Wednesday, in which he's expected to start out on Minnesota's practice squad. According to reports, 10 teams had interest in Jones following his release. The Vikings have just one quarterback under contract for the 2025 season, and rookie signal caller J.J. McCarthy, who is sidelined for the entirety of the season. But Jones now adding as an insurance policy to Sam Darnold. But Jones owning a 12-19-1 record during his time with the G-Men, and after signing that lucrative four-year, $160 million extension after his 2022 campaign, his numbers on the decline, including tossing 13 touchdown passes to 6 picks across the last 2 seasons. And just like in the words of Lizzo, new man on the Minnesota Vikings. I'm talking to Daniel Jones as we welcome in CBS Sports NFL writer Will Brinson. And it didn't take too long for Jones to find a landing spot after being released by the Giants on Friday. Just considering DJ had other suitors with the potential to start, just to help make sense of this for me. Explain this marriage between Minnesota and Jones.
Oh, I think it makes all the sense in the world, Kiana. I mean, you talk about, you look at what Kevin O'Connell has done, not just with every quarterback he's worked with, really, but like these quarterbacks. We saw Josh Dobbs, excuse me, come over like midweek and win a game for the Vikings last year. And so now Daniel Jones gets to come in. He's on the practice squad to start. Maybe he gets elevated. Sam Darnold has had his ups and downs this season, and I think Daniel Jones gives him a really nice insurance policy, not just for this year, but maybe for the future, because Darnold, unlikely to return on a one-year deal. He's going to be a free agent next year, so he's unlikely to come back to Minnesota. He's going to want to get paid somewhere. Minnesota probably not going to pay him after drafting a quarterback in the first round. And if you go with Daniel Jones, you get to find out, all right, does this guy have what, the traits, the qualities, the et cetera, that we might be interested in for a veteran moving forward. Because remember, J.J. McCarthy, a second surgery during the season. And so his availability, you expect him to be ready for the year, but you don't know. And I think this is a nice insurance policy for this year in case something happens with Darnold or his play declines and Jones comes in and looks good. And I think it's a great choice for Daniel Jones because of the success Kevin O'Connell has had with all of these other quarterbacks who've come in and worked with him. Kirk Cousins got paid. Sam Darnold's going to get paid. Dobbs going to circulate for jobs as well. So I like the move by both sides.
It's kind of like they're playing chess, not checkers over here, looking towards the future, but also this season as well. But you talk about Sam Darnold maybe commanding a larger paycheck, especially after leading this Vikings team to a 9-2 record. But it's a Turkey Day matinee on CBS. The Bears and Lions kick off the 3-game slate at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Detroit, winners of 9 straight, are seeking their best 12-game start in franchise history. Giants quarterback Tommy DeVito is questionable for their matchup against the Cowboys with a forearm injury. Drew Lock will start if DeVito isn't able to go. And in the nightcap, it's the Dolphins and Packers from Lambeau. These two last met on Christmas Day in 2022, a 6-point Packers win. But as for the first game of the holiday trifecta, as I'm going to call it, history hasn't quite, that's right, can't ignore that. But history just hasn't quite been on Detroit's side on Turkey Day. I mean, they've lost on Thanksgiving every single year dating back to 2016. But hey, this isn't your parents' Detroit Lions. Well, 10-1 record, tops in the NFC, all sides of the ball dominating as of late. Detroit with the biggest spread of the Thanksgiving slate, favored by 9.5. But what would it take for us to maybe see an upset by Caleb Williams and the Bears on Thursday?
I think they can keep it competitive. We've seen just 2 heartbreaking, divisional losses for the Bears over the last 2 weeks, but they got into those games at least. We're in the game early against the Packers, and then, of course, came back late against the Vikings to push that to overtime. So I think they can stick around, but I would think that we see Detroit kind of pull away here. This isn't your parents' Lions. This isn't your grandparents' Lions. This isn't even your older cousin's Lions. This Lions team is an absolute truck stick. I mean, they are beating the pants off everybody. They can win in many different ways. They have so many different weapons, Sonic and Knuckles out of the backfield, and they're all very unselfish in how they do it. Defensively, also playing really well to Aaron Glenn and on the defensive side, and of course, Ben Johnson on the offensive side, getting their names in the mix for head coaching jobs. So, as a company man, I'm going to root for a close game because, you want to have the ratings up. And by the way, thank goodness we got this game and not that the Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, Cooper Rush Bowl in the afternoon. But as a bettor, I'm going to be taking the Lions here. I think that they can really squash the Bears. I think we see Detroit get a lead. Maybe Chicago hangs around during the first half, but Detroit gets this lead, particularly in the third quarter, kind of pulls away with the run game, and Chicago and Caleb Williams forced to throw a ton to the diverse group of wide receivers he has. I like Detroit in the game against the spread, but I mean, it could certainly end up being closer based on the last 2 weeks from the Bears and their offense.
Yeah, thank goodness that CBS does get the best team currently in the NFL as the early game, but also you talk about it's not even your cousins. Detroit Lions, well, Lions favored to win the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history and haven't even been to the Super Bowl. So you are right about that fact. Not even our grandparents at that point. But to Green Bay, where some key players will be couched for this Thanksgiving night showdown against the Dolphins and Packers, have ruled out wideout Romeo Doubs, cornerback Jair Alexander, and linebacker Edgerrin Cooper. Another linebacker, Isaiah McDuffie, questionable with an ankle injury. McDuffie has started all 11 games this season, but if he can't go, Green Bay would be down to 3 healthy linebackers against this surging Miami offense. Now, will Miami trying to keep their playoff hopes alive, but that begins with a win against Green Bay. They're currently 1 game out of that last playoff spot and taking on a banged-up Packers team. Just what do you make of this Tua and Co's chances of maybe taking advantage of the Packers' injury woes?
I like the Dolphins against the spread quite a bit. They're catching 3. Jair Alexander's a big deal. Romeo Doubs has been very good this year, but they have Dontavian Wicks in the wings. Bo Melton and Malik Heath as well as sort of like under the radar guys who could step up. And I think it's probably a big Jaden Reed game. Josh Jacobs has been awesome for this run game so far this season, and so I'm not worried about that from that perspective. But I mean this Miami offense, and you're going to hear a lot about Tua in the cold. Tua, it's supposed to snow. It's going to be like 30 degrees at Lambeau as it is around this time so frequently. But the Dolphins have been cooking lately, and Jalen Waddle got real involved against the Patriots last week, and Jonnu Smith has been extremely consistent and a higher end tight end in this year where tight end production is kind of down. So I think the Dolphins can do enough to stay within the number here, and I think particularly with Alexander out, it just makes the wide receivers that much more dangerous for Miami. They're going to need to run the ball with Devin Achane because you got to have that to set up the pass. And of course, in the cold weather, you want to be able to move the ball on the ground. But I think this Dolphins team is absolutely live for the playoffs, particularly after the Chargers lost on Monday night, And, if Tua keeps playing the way that he's playing, this is a Dolphins team that's dangerous, no matter who they're going up against.
I feel like you're talking about the Dolphins and some of their weapons. I feel like they're just eager to just really break out. Obviously, they had to deal with Tua with that injury earlier in the season, but we really got to see Waddle come alive in the last week. I'm certain Tyreek wants to get involved, so you could be spot on. We can see this offense really catch fire. Maybe just get used to those jackets and maybe those hand warmers out there in Green Bay.
That's
but
right.
Will, as always, thanks so much for stopping by.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. And, well, I think Will was already talking about the storyline when it comes to, let's say, Dolphins in cold weather conditions. The mammals, they stay in warm weather conditions. Same with the football team. Miami Dolphins, well, they've lost 11 straight games when the temp drops below 40 degrees. Looking to shake off that trend on Thanksgiving night. How about some Black Friday football? The Raiders head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Aiden O'Connell will get the start at quarterback. O'Connell has missed the Raiders' past 4 games while on the IR with a fractured thumb. He'll be taking over for Gardner Minshew, who is out for the season with a broken collarbone. On Wednesday, Raiders coach Antonio Pierce wasn't parsing any words when asked about facing their divisional foes.
Yeah, it's called spade to spade, right? The best team in football against the worst team in football. Let's change the narrative, right? Let's go out there and make it a dog fight. Let's make it ugly. Let's make it scrappy. It's Black Friday. Let's create a little chaos. Let's get back to Raider football and have some fun and some personality. Let it loose.
He said call a spade a spade. I mean, at least he's being realistic about this situation because look at the numbers. The Raiders ranking dead last in the NFL in several categories. They would be the second team all time to finish last in all categories. The last team to do that was the 2017 Browns. But he did say create chaos. You remember who served the Chiefs that loss on Christmas Day last year? Yeah, the Raiders.